getting this up streaming live on our YouTube channel. You can always go to our YouTube channel and watch this program again if you choose to in the future. We also have all of our programs up there, all of our past children and teens events. So check that out when you get a chance. It looks like you guys are all logging in. Excellent. All right. I am going to go ahead and get started. So if you just joined us, welcome to P&P Live. My name is Brandy, and I am a bookseller in the Children and Teens Department at Politics and Prose. Thanks for tuning into our today's event. We're very excited. Please note that closed captioning is available for today's program. You just click the live transcript button at the bottom of your screen and select Enable Transcript. Today, we welcome author Joanna Ho, who will be discussing her new and highly anticipated picture book, Eyes That Speak to the Stars. Joanna Ho is the New York Times bestselling author of Eyes That Kiss in the Corners and Playing at the Border, A Story of Yo-Yo Ma. She is passionate about equity and inclusion in books and education, and she's currently the vice principal of a high school in San Francisco Bay Area. Homemade chocolate chip cookies, outdoor adventures, and dance parties with her kids make Joanna's eyes crinkle into crescent moons. For today's event, you can ask Joanna a question by clicking on the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. You can also vote on your favorite questions by clicking the thumbs up button that will bump them up in the queue. Teachers, if you are submitting a question for one of your students, make sure you include the student's name, school name, and age or grade so we can acknowledge them. One final reminder, just make sure your questions are on topic about the things that we are discussing today. You can also click on the chat, the link in the chat, to pre-order your own copy of Eyes That Speak to the Stars. And the book will release on February 15th, and we can't wait to see it. All right, and we're going to get a sneak preview today, which is very exciting. You're going to see this book that most people aren't going to get to see yet. So, Joanna, I am going to turn it over to you now.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. And hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm Joanna Ho. I'm the author of Eyes That Kiss in the Corners. You can see in the back. Playing at the Border came out last September, and then Eyes That Speak to the Stars will be out in just a couple weeks. So I'm really excited to be here to share a little bit with you. I'm going to share my screen, and while I do that, teachers, what I will need from you or anyone who's participating, there are a couple points at which I will ask for input from you and your students. So just be ready at the chat to type in a couple numbers. Can you all see my screen? I hope that is the correct one. Just gonna, if it stays quiet, I'll know that I hope that that's the right one. Okay, so Eyes That Speak to the Stars. The way we're gonna do before I start reading is we're gonna do a little bit of a choose your own adventure. So I have 8 sort of little hints, scaffold if you're a teacher, if you will, that will tell you a little bit more about the book so that when I read the book, you'll understand a little bit more of the backstory or the history or the symbolism or just like my own personal family story and how that relates. And so what I would love to hear from you all is which picture you want to hear about first. Which of these little hints or clues do you want to learn about more? So if you could pop that in the chat, just type the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8. That will help me know where we should get started. Okay, I see a 7. Oh, I see 2 7s. I'm gonna give you like 15 seconds to keep going. 7, 5, 6. Okay, we're gonna start with number 7 first. And then we'll come back and you guys can choose again the next one you want to hear about. Okay, so in Chinese culture, a dragon is a symbol of power. So sometimes in Western culture, dragons are greedy and they hoard treasure. But in Chinese culture, dragons are considered really powerful. In fact, they tend to be male, and male figures, and that'll come to play if we get to talk about number 7 in a little bit. But they tend to be male figures, and they are really powerful. And Chinese people feel like there's a belief, that we are descended from dragons. Some of their powers include controlling elements of nature like wind and air and water. And they have a lot of, I think, magical powers that it's essentially symbolize power. Okay, so that's one. Let's go back to our map. What's the next picture you want to hear about? I'm going to give you, okay, I see a 6, a 1, 4. Ooh, we're all over now. 4, 2, 4. Oh, I think 4's 1, 2, and 4. Okay, 1, 2, 4. Okay, we're going to go 4, and then we'll do number 2. I see a lot of 4s. Okay, number 4. This is, and this is one, and so before I said about the other one, when you in the story, I wish I could have put a magnifying glass on these pictures, but notice where you see the dragon, and then notice now where you see this figure. This person's name, this is a goddess. Her name is Mazu. So it's spelled M-A-Z-U, and it's pronounced Mazu. She is a goddess over parts of the ocean, so specifically the Taiwan Strait. The legend is that she was once like a young girl who there were so many miracles who attended, and who surrounded her, and she became sort of this legendary person who now is a goddess that's worshipped. You can see the statue in China, and the idea is that she protects sailors and travelers on the ocean. So if you look at this map, you can see the smaller map, you can see Taiwan, you can see China, Korea, Hong Kong, and the parts of the Asia, or specifically that really believe in Mazu, are in this Taiwan Strait. So I blew up the picture. It's that little piece of water that's in between China and Taiwan. But she is also a figure in many parts of Asia, but specifically for me and my family is from Taiwan, my mom's side of the family, and my dad's side of the family, you can see Hong Kong sort of in that back down corner. And so at some point in my history, my ancestors immigrated from China, and they sailed across the sea to Taiwan. And so for me personally, this idea of having a Mazu, a goddess protecting travelers or refugees or immigrants crossing the ocean, is one that I felt was really personal to me, but also really a huge part of my culture. So that is Mazu. I think I promised that we would talk about number 2 next, which was this picture. And then I'll let you guys choose your next adventure again. This is a Dr. Seuss picture. So this was a picture, and so in the book, I asked you to look for Mazu. In the book, you'll see right at the beginning, if you notice the picture of the way that these people's eyes are drawn, you notice that they're drawn like 2 lines that are slanted on their face. So this was a picture drawn by Dr. Seuss. This is actually one reason I don't read Dr. Seuss anymore. And he was supporting, during World War II, there was, the US was fighting against many countries, and one of them was Japan. And so Dr. Seuss created this cartoon to show all the Japanese, what he's saying here is that all the Japanese people who, even if they were born in the United States, even if they were United States citizens, he's saying they're all enemies, and secretly they're all spies. And he was really supporting putting them in internment camps. And so he was a big proponent of imprisoning. So what happened was they passed a law and an executive order, and all of the Japanese people on the West Coast, they were rounded up, they were taken from their homes, they had to give up all their belongings, and they had to live in horse stalls and in different camps, and they lost everything because they were suspected, even if it was totally untrue, of being enemies of the country. And so Dr. Seuss, what I want you to notice is how he drew their eyes, and how the way that this illustration of a Chinese or an Asian person's eyes is not just really hurtful, but throughout history, it's one way that's been used to really discriminate against Asian people. And so when you see this happening in the story, it's what we call a microaggression. So it's something where you're like, oh, maybe that's not that bad. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm misinterpreting why I feel so hurt. But really, there's a long history of why things like this are really hurtful. And then we'll see what happens to the young boy in the book when something like this happens to him. Okay. What's your next choice? Which one do you want to hear about next? I think maybe we have time for maybe one or two more. I see 6. I see 1, 6 or 7, 7, 6. Okay, we did 7. Oh, okay, 6 is a clear winner on this one. Thank you everyone for shouting out your preferences. Okay, if you had a chance to read Eyes That Kiss in the Corners, you might remember this picture from the book. And I want you to notice that there is both a phoenix and there's a dragon. Okay, so I told you a little bit about the dragon before. The phoenix is also a mythical creature in Chinese culture, and the phoenix is typically a female character. So in Eyes That Kiss in the Corners, the phoenix was really prevalent. You saw her here, you saw her here, where the young girl is really coming into her own and recognizing her own power and her ability to create change and lift others, but also create change and see kingdoms and a better future. And so the phoenix really represents an idea of rebirth, this idea that we can start again and create something new and something better. So that's a character that was really prevalent in Eyes That Kiss in the Corners. And so what I want you to do when I read you the story is I want you to be on the lookout. Where do you see the phoenix in this book? And how might that connect the two different books? Okay, let's do maybe 1 or 2 more. Which one do you want to hear about next? Thank you all for being such great participants. I wish I could see your faces. 8 and 1. 1, 1. Okay, 1. I love how there's patterns. Okay. Oh, I see some 3s. Ooh, 1. Okay, 5 or 8. Okay, I'm trying to go really fast. We'll start with 1. I see a bunch of 8s. And then, yep, we'll do 1 first. Okay, so 1, what I want you to do is look in the picture, in the story for a train. I'll tell you the story behind this. My son, his name is Carter. He's in 1st grade now. He is obsessed with trains, and we live close to the Caltrain. So we live really close to the Caltrain station. So this picture on the right was taken just a couple weeks ago. I had the opportunity to take him on a mommy's Sunday, and guess what he wanted to do? He wanted me to have dinner at the train station so we could sit at the train station and watch trains. And my son is not interested in any books unless there's a train or a plane in the book. So I asked the illustrator. She did actually put a train in one of the pictures, and I asked her, can you please make this a Caltrain so that my son will want to read my book? Because otherwise he's not going to want to read it. So I want you to keep your eyes out in the illustrations. Where do you see a Caltrain? And now you know that's our little secret. Joanna had to put that in there. Otherwise her son wouldn't want to read her book, even though it was kind of about him and for him. I think I saw a bunch of 8s also. So we'll jump back over there. You'll see at the end of the book, when the book talks about the main character and his little brother, it really is inspired by my son and my daughter. So this is taken when my daughter, this is a few years ago, really soon after she was born. And my son used to just stand outside her crib, and while she was sleeping, she's propped up because she used to throw up a lot even after she ate. And he would just wait and watch her and wait until she woke up. And he would sing her songs, and he would sing until she woke up. And so he just loved her so, so much. And so when I was writing this book, even though in the book it's about a little boy and his little brother, it was very much inspired by my own kids. Okay, I think maybe we have time for a couple more. I think I saw a couple 3s, so we'll go back. Do we have a preference before the last couple? How we go? We've done 1, 2, 4. Oh, we got 5 or 3 and 5. So we'll just cover those quickly. You'll also see in the book a relationship between an akong. So that means a grandfather and his little kids. And so that's very much inspired by my stepdad. This is him. He's a doctor. And he never had his own kids. So this is the first time that we've really interacted for a long period of time with kids. And so it was really beautiful for me to see how he's changed, not how he changed, but this whole other side of him that I didn't know, because I didn't meet him until I was 12. To see him with little kids, and he just loves my kids so much. So that's him and my son when my son was little. And this picture, this next one is just this last Christmas. In the book, you'll see something about an akong and the way that he looks at his kids, his grandkids. And that really reminds me of my stepdad, who just adores, he's someone who he's a doctor, and he works really late every night, even now. And he's very I know all the answers to everything. You just ask him any question and he just is a genius. But when he looks at my kids, he will do anything for them. And I hope that there's someone like that in your life. And so while I transition to the next slide, I would love for you to pop in the chat, who is someone who you feel looks at you like you are the whole world? Do you have a grandparent or a parent? Who's someone in your life that just looks at you and thinks you are the best thing that ever happened to them? Pop that in the chat while I move over to the next picture. I see someone wrote their grandma. Oh, someone wrote my children. Grandma. Mom, dad, and grandparents. Your dog, that's a great one. Yes, my grandparents' dog. Thank you all for sharing. Mom, dad, younger sister, your whole family. How blessed. Your mom, your whole family. I love that. Your little sister. Yes. Zachary's dog. Granddad. So this is a picture of my grandpa. So he lived in Hong Kong, and I only got to see him once every few years, because I lived in the United States and he lived in Hong Kong. So this is one of the only pictures that I have with him. But when I visited, I remember one of my main memories of him is every single morning he would wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and Hong Kong is really mountainous. So it's very hilly, and he would go climb mountains. So he'd leave his house and he would just hike, because everywhere you go, it's really, really mountainy. And so when I visited, I got to wake up and go on morning walks up the mountain with him. And that's one of my favorite memories that I have of me and my grandpa on the few times that I got to visit him in Hong Kong. And so see, as you're reading through the book, now that I've shared all these kind of little secrets, when I'm reading the book, see where you can remember the different stories or the history, the background of why that part was included in the book. Okay, if you're ready to hear the book now, type a 1 in the chat. Oh, also, I love this. My grandma and grandpa from Abigail, my grandma from Clara. Okay, I see a 1. I see a 1 from Miss Walton, Miss Bauer, Miss Dodson, Miss Kozak, Miss Morales. Okay, we ready? Thank you all for participating and so actively. So I'm going to read the story, and then when I'm done with the story, I would love to answer some questions for you. I'll close this chat. Okay, Eyes That Speak to the Stars by Joanna Ho, by me, and illustrated by Zung Ho. And I get this question all the time, and Zung and I are not related. She is from Vietnam. She lives in Vietnam, but we share a similar last name when it's translated into English. I'm going to go slow, because I'm going to give you a hint. On this page is something that I asked you to look for. What do you see? Okay. The other day when Papa picked me up from school, I didn't run in for a hug the way I usually do. I stared at my toes where it was safe. What's wrong? Papa asked, and all my hurt tumbled out. Kurt drew a picture of our friends, I said. He pointed at a person with eyes like 2 lines stretched across his face and told me, that one is you. But it didn't look like me at all. When we got home, Papa stood with me in front of a mirror and said, "Your eyes rise to the skies and speak to the stars. The comets and constellations show you their secrets, and your eyes can foresee the future, just like mine." Papa's eyes that rise to the skies and speak to the stars are filled with all the surprises he can't wait to give me throughout the day. When he lifts me above his head and cries, "Ready for takeoff!" before running through the house, like we're headed toward the heavens, his eyes shine like runway lights and tell me, "Lift your arms, my son. You're going to soar above the clouds." Papa always looks up and his eyes are just like Akong's. Akong's eyes that rise to the skies and speak to the stars gaze into the distance like they're looking at the world through lenses of time. The voices of ancestors whisper in his ear, speaking in lilting languages of rice paddies climbing mountains like stairways to the sky, Madzu's miracles showing mercy from on high, and mango milk from night markets lit with bulbs of light. Agong has an answer for every question I ask on our early morning walks. But when I hug him goodnight, he cups my face in his hands and looks at me like I am the only answer that matters. Agong holds the wisdom of generations, and his eyes are just like Titi's. Titi's eyes that rise to the skies and speak to the stars are closed so long I grow an inch waiting for him to wake up. When Titi's eyelids finally flutter open, I orbit his crib, making funny faces and singing silly songs until his laugh grows so big it spreads up his cheeks and makes his eyes squeeze shut again. He looks at me like I'm the world, but he is the sun filling my days with light. Titi's eyes that rise to the skies and speak to the stars are just like mine. My eyes shine like sunlit rays that break through dark and doubt. They lift their sights on paths of flight that soar above the clouds. My eyes gaze into space and glimpse trails of light, inviting me into impossibilities. The comets and constellations show me their secrets because I am the emperor of my own destiny. I read a brighter future in the stars and will fight to make it reality. My eyes that rise to the skies and speak to the stars are visionary. They are Papa and Akong and Titi. They are me and they are powerful. So I'm wondering if you noticed that in the beginning, it was just stars, but in the end, there were these lanterns. So I'll tell you one more thing before I open it up for questions. But so when you light a lantern in some parts of Chinese culture, you write your wishes on the lantern and you let it up into the sky. And the idea is that, you're letting your wishes up to the heavens, and so that hopefully they'll come true. And so I found this picture when I was creating this, and I forgot that this happened. I remembered that we had done lanterns. This is when I took my kids to Taiwan with my mom and my stepdad. This was in 2019. So my son was 5 and almost 5, and my daughter was 4. Oh no, she was 3, 2. And so we went and we did a lantern. And we wrote our wishes on it. So it says Jia Ting. So that just means family, like full of love. Jia Ting is family. You see that in Chinese. And then I wrote, this is before I had any books published, and I only had one book deal in the works, and that was for Eyes That Kiss in the Corners. And so at that point, I didn't know if I would ever have any more deals or any more books, or I didn't know if anyone would ever see my book or how it would do. And so I wrote some of my dreams for my books. So I wrote New York Times bestsellers, and I wrote so many books. I know that in my heart, I was hoping, I hope I have a lot more book deals one day and I can tell more stories. And then we let this lantern into the sky. And if And I can say some of those dreams and some of those wishes have come true. And so this is hopefully, this is my family letting some of our wishes up into the sky when we were in Taiwan, a lot like the boy in this book, where he is has a lot of dreams and hopes for the future and the ways he wants to make it better. And he's letting those up into the sky so he can make it reality too. Okay, on that note, I will stop sharing, and I would love to invite any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Joanna. How wonderful that your wishes came true for you. But of course, it's not just good luck; it's your amazing talent. And this is a beautiful book. I speak for everyone when I say we enjoyed it so much, and hearing about your family and your traditions. I see that we're starting to get some questions in the chat, but I will ask you one question as they're starting to fill up. We just celebrated the Lunar New Year, and I wondered if you did anything special with your family or if you have any special traditions.
Yeah, so Lunar New Year actually is a holiday that lasts for like 2 weeks.
Oh,
So
well, then still.
yes, it's still continuing. So I can say I didn't realize that because here in the US, it's not really a holiday and we don't get time off. But when I lived in Taiwan, that's when I first realized what a huge holiday it was. So, we get like 2 weeks winter break for school. In Taiwan and many parts of Asia, they get their big holiday break is around Lunar New Year. And so it's like 3 weeks off. So what did I do? I deep cleaned my house last weekend. The tradition is that you have to clean all the bad luck. You have to sweep away all the bad luck out of your house. So I mean, when I say clean, I mean like you clean out the junk drawer. I spray down everything. I rearrange everything. When I lived in Taiwan, I saw people move all their furniture out of the house and like spray down the whole house because you want to get all that bad luck out. And then I had a big meal with my family, and I've actually been back to my mom's. She lives close, and I've gone every day this week because every day there's sort of a tradition about like where you're supposed to go. But since not my family couldn't all travel and get together, like my brother couldn't come, I've just gone to see my mom every day, and we've eaten a lot of food. There's traditional foods that you eat, and then you're supposed to eat leftovers because that means like you had so much, you were so full and so not prosperous, that's not the right word, but you just had so much that there were leftovers. So that's good luck for the new year.
Oh, I love it. Well, that is one thing our American culture has in common because we like to eat lots of foods
Yes.
on our special
On
holidays.
holidays.
So, one thing that we all have in common. We're getting lots of great questions. Let's see, let's start with this great question that we have from Jack E. Jack would like to know, Jack says the illustrations are so beautiful. Did you work with the illustrator for the book? And is it the same illustrator you worked with as Eyes That Kiss in the Corners?
Yeah, so it's the same illustrator as Eyes That Kiss in the Corners. I'll show you. Let's see. You can see how they're similar. You can see the styles are similar. Sorry, you can see that light. And I think the interesting thing is that when I'm as an author, you don't actually get to work with the illustrator. So the publisher chooses the illustrator, and I'm so fortunate that Zong was the one who was chosen and that she was willing to illustrate my book and that she's been willing to illustrate the other ones in this series. I won't call it series, but like all the other companion books. And so what happens is I submit my text to my editor and then I work with her to fix it. And then when she's like, this is good, she sends it to the illustrator and then I never see it again. And then like many, many months, sometimes a year later, I might get an email in my inbox that says, hey, here's some drafts. Here's some character sketches. What do you think? Or here's some drafts of all the pages. What do you think? What's your feedback? And I can give a little bit of feedback, but mostly the illustrator works with the editor. And then just once in a while, I get to see progress on their work. And so that might seem like a hard thing to let your baby go. But what I really learned is that the illustrator adds so many details and so many layers to my text that it makes the story even richer than the one that I wrote. So I really like on the day you get to see pictures like Christmas, oh, I get to see it, and then you get to like open your email and see how they brought your words to life. So I really love that.
Yeah, that must be so exciting. I imagine my heart would be beating so
Yeah.
fast to open those pictures.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Um, let's see. Grayson, who is in the first grade at Lafayette, would like to know when you wrote your first book.
Hmm, that is an interesting question. So I started writing in 2000, probably 2015. And that's when I decided, okay, like it was late 2014. I thought, okay, I'm going to start trying to write books. So I wrote a bunch of books 2015, 2016, and they were not awesome, but that's okay because I was learning and I was taking a lot of classes and I was learning more about the craft of writing for kids and writing picture books, especially. Eyes That Kiss in the Corners, which is my first published book, but it's not the first book that I ever wrote. That one I wrote in 2017, like in starting probably like in December. So, and then it wasn't picked up. It was just rejected for over a year and a half. Nobody wanted to publish it until it was finally picked up. And then the publishing process is so long. When it was picked up in like 2019, it wasn't published until just last year. So it's a really long process. But my first books were written, 6, 7 years ago.
Wow. And you answered several other questions asked about how long it takes. So WES Kindergarten had asked that. So thanks for sharing that with us too. I think we don't realize what a long process it really is. Even when it's a short picture book.
Yeah, a
So
picture
much
books take longer actually than like a novel because so it takes a while to make these beautiful illustrations. Like it might be a whole other year and a half before you even see sketches or final pictures. So the books that you see published now were probably signed into contract 2 or 3 years ago.
excellent. Let's find another good question. Um, let's see. So Emma, who is a second grader at Lafayette, would like to know what made you think of writing books.
Oh, that's a great question. I was a teacher and an English teacher, and I'm someone who's very passionate about inclusion and equity, meaning that I believe that everyone should have opportunities that they need in the world. That's probably the easiest way to describe that right now, and that it should be there should be justice for everyone. And so when I feel really passionately that kids need to see themselves in books and they need to see about all kinds of people in their books. And right now in children's books, most books are about animals or white kids. And there aren't that many. It's like a very small percentage for kids like mine or kids like me. It's really hard. When I was growing up, I didn't see myself in books at all. In fact, I didn't even know it was possible for a Chinese person to be in a book. Unless it was very stereotypical. So when my son was born, I was looking for books to add to our library at home, and I couldn't find very many books about young Asian kids or young biracial kids, young kids of color at all. And I just had this epiphany, like, why don't you start writing them? And at the time, I didn't realize how hard it was to write because you look at a picture book and you think, oh, it's very short. But I had a lot of very good, very direct feedback that said, you should probably learn more about this craft, as in you should probably learn more about how to write a good picture book. So that's why I started to take a lot of classes. But my goal has always been to try to tell stories that have not been told or tell stories that my kids can see themselves in, that other kids like mine can see themselves into.
Well, Susanna must be our teacher. Eleanor, who is at Mann Elementary School, asked if you ever felt different when you were in school, like the boy in the book. And you kind of just spoke to that a little bit, but if you want to speak to that a little more.
Oh, I love that question. Thank you. Yeah, I definitely did. So when I was growing up, and it happens, I think, to a lot of young Asian kids, but kids would pull their eyes up. I'm not going to do it because it's just like so horrible. But they would pull their eyes up so it's very slanty, and they would say like "ching chong wing wong," and they would make fun of me and my language, and it was really, really hurtful. And then so that's one thing that I would, I'd be very sensitive about my face. I used to grow up and everything I ever saw. So when I talk about Eyes That Kiss in the Corners, I really talk a lot about how I watched a lot of Disney movies. And at that time there's no Netflix and no Disney Plus. So I just had like Sleeping Beauty, no, Sleeping Beauty, Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, and everyone in those movies has humongous eyes, and they're all blue, and I don't have humongous eyes, and my eyes are not blue, and I don't have golden hair, and so I used to really think like I'm never going to be beautiful. I look in the mirror and I pull my eyelids up and wish that I had bigger eyes because I thought that's what I needed to be pretty. And I never saw a different example. Every book I ever read talked about beautiful girls with golden hair and blue eyes. And so I think it's one of those things where you don't realize you've internalized, meaning I started to believe certain things about myself that were not true because I didn't have enough representation in the things that I saw. So to answer your question, like, yes, these books are very personal. These are things that I've experienced, but they're also things that I know other East Asian kids especially experience also.
Maybe some of the kids who are watching today who even had this experience.
Yeah.
So
So
it's important to talk about.
yeah, my hope too is that like as more kids read these books, they realize doing things like that is harmful, or they realize that, eyes that kiss in the corners, or eyes that speak to the stars, or anyone who's different kinds of eyes, any shaped eyes, it's all beautiful, and to really understand and treasure and honor that.
Mhm. It's wonderful. We have a question from Murch Elementary School, second grade. How often do you visit Taiwan?
I, I wish I could visit more often. It's a very long plane ride. It's like a 16-hour plane ride. And during the pandemic, so the last time I visited was 2019, just before the pandemic. And I haven't been back since. So as soon as things, I think, get better, I would love to go back. I still have some family there, and I love it there. So, I mean, I was born here, but I feel it's very much like a home for me too.
Of course. Yeah, it's been a hard time with people who have family in other countries. Well, here's a question, kind of following up to that, from Eloise, who wants to know, because we've just had, a lot of snow here in the last few weeks, and she is wondering if it snows in Asia.
Oh, you know what? It does. It depends on where you live. It's just like here. It is a humongous part of the country, or of the world. So there are parts that are very tropical, and there are parts that are very, very cold.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Caroline, who is in the first grade, asks, "What is your favorite part? Excuse me. What is your favorite part of writing?"
Oh, I love getting to make up stories. I love being able to share like the things that I think about the world through stories. So each of the stories that I write, there's like things that I'm trying to say, like my opinions about the world, or things I hope that I can help change. And I love that I can do that in stories. I love that I get to meet young people, but there's something really special about playing with words and then making up characters. And I had one author friend say, "These characters, they do what I want. I tell them to do. They're not, they do whatever I say." But I think the beauty is like, I can play with it, and then I can change it, and I can try to tell the story that really speaks to something from my heart.
Beautiful. And Henri, who is also in the same class, wanted to know, do you have a favorite part of the book?
Oh, I love the page. I love all of Zone's illustrations, but when I saw this one, let's see if I can without the
Whoa, yeah, that's a good one.
jaw dropped. I just thought this was so beautiful. I love that.
All right, we have so many wonderful questions, and I'm trying to look through all of them. Let's see. Um, Rowan, who is in the second grade at Lafayette, and this is really a question about the illustration, so you may not know the answer, but Rowan observed that the illustrator uses a lot of bright colors. Do you have any thoughts on why that might be?
I don't know, but I can tell you something about color in the book. So this is more about Eyes That Kiss in the Corners. I know that she's very intentional about her use of colors. So Eyes That Kiss in the Corners has end pages that look like this. And then you'll notice there's a carry through of the yellow color here. And my favorite color is yellow. So I used to think,
Mine too. And my sofa, definitely my favorite color.
I used to think, oh, she must have figured out that my favorite color is yellow. But it turns out that that's not why she made this yellow. She made these yellow because Constance Wu, who is an actress, she wore this beautiful yellow dress to the premiere of Crazy Rich Asians, which was the first
Oh,
movie
yeah.
in like 25 years that had an all Asian cast. And just like I showed you that picture of Dr. Seuss and how he drew those pictures with the Asian eyes like this. Asian people, they used to be called the yellow peril. There's a whole history behind that yellow, like, so that we were dangerous and we were called yellow. So there's something really discriminatory or derogatory about the color yellow in reference to Asian people. And so Constance Wu really wore that yellow dress, like, I'm taking back the color yellow. We're beautiful, we're powerful, like we're changing that narrative. And so that's why these flowers were made yellow also. So in terms of the general color scheme, I don't know about the color, like all these colors, but I know that the colors and the carry through of the color yellow is very intentional.
Hmm. Liv, who is a second grader at Lafayette, this is a great question. And I'm curious too, why didn't you put yourself in the book?
I think that if you saw some of the pictures that I shared earlier, you would know that that I'm in all of my books. There's parts of me in every single one, whether it's myself personally or my family or my feelings or my personal experiences. They're all in there somewhere. That's where the books were probably inspired, but it's not necessarily me as a character, but there's always me in all, whether it's a picture book or a novel, it's there somewhere.
Great answer. You have a lot of questions about the lanterns, and I'm going to try to sum up a couple of them. Merch Elementary School asks how many lanterns you lit, and let's see, what else do we have? Deanna at Merch also asks, how do you make a lantern? I don't know if you've ever made one. And then Emma is curious. Sorry, Emma is our teacher. Joaquim, who's a second grader at Lafayette, asks how the lanterns float. So I guess my questions are: how many lanterns have you ever made one, and do you know how they work? It's a
Okay,
kind of
so
science question. I know you're not a scientist; you're a writer.
I don't live in Taiwan, so I've only ever lit one lantern.
Ooh,
That was that picture that I showed you. So I've never done it before.
well,
It's
you
not
nailed
like,
it on the first try.
yeah. Well, we
Win.
had help. We had help. When you go and you can like go and light lanterns, you like pay for the lantern and whatever. There's like festivals and things where people light lanterns and do that. But this was a little bit of a touristy, like, this is something that we do, like light your own lantern sort of thing. Um, so I think in parts of Asia, there's like holidays where you do that, but it's not like we go and light lanterns all the time. So that's not fun. So just one. In terms of how to make them, I don't know. Sorry. And then in terms of how they float, so they're inside there is like a canister of like a something that you light. So it's like something like dipped in oil maybe, and you light it on fire. And so inside the lantern, there's a little fire, and the fire, I don't know. I hope if there's a biology teacher, or a science teacher or something, it creates some kind of reaction where it gets light and it floats. I should probably look that up because that was probably not a very scientific answer, but it has to do with the fire that's inside the lantern.
Well, thank you. It's a book event, not a science event. But kids, this can be your homework. If you're curious, you can work with your teacher to try to look online and see if you can find out more information about how it works scientifically, because you're not pros in that area, but you can always do your own research, right? All right. Let's see. WES Kindergarten asks, will you write another book? I hope so. And do you have any ideas of what it might be about?
I hope so too. I'm always writing when in my free time, I'd make time to write. So I do have a lot of books that are coming out over the next few years. I probably have like 2 or 3 books a year for the next few years coming out. And then more books on the way. So though I can tell you about what ones that are coming out soon. I have a novel coming out this summer. So this is coming out in February. I have a young adult novel coming out in June. It's called The Silence That Binds Us.
I think for the older kids.
Yeah, or for the teachers.
Teacher.
um, and I have a book. So there is actually a third Eyes book. It's called Eyes That Weave the World's Wonders. And that is about a young transracial, transnational adoptee who is adopted into a family. She's Asian and they're not. And so that was written in partnership with Liz Kleinrock, who is an adoptee. I'm not an adoptee. I have a book called Say My Name. That's about a bunch of kids with beautiful names who are telling people to say their name correctly and explaining the history and the meaning behind their names. I have one called One Day that's coming out. That's like a mother's ode to her newborn son. So there's a bunch. What am I working on now that's not under contract? I have this secret desire. I really, really want to write a Christmas book, like a Christmas classic that has Asian kids in it. And so I've been working hard. I have written like several of them, but they all get co-opted into something else, or it's not quite the right thing, or the book is picked up, but then they'd say it shouldn't be a Christmas book. So that's like a life goal of mine, is to write a Christmas book.
Oh, you'll get there. Wow, I have to say, as a grown-up, I'm sure the grown-ups here are wondering, you are a high school principal and you're writing all these books and you're a mom. Oh my goodness, how do you do all these things?
I don't sleep a lot. So my kids are with their dad every other weekend. So on the weekends, my kids are with their dad. I write all weekend. I like shut myself in my house and I don't leave the house. Sometimes I write in the morning before I go to work. Sometimes I write at night when I come home. But it's just, I love doing it so much that I make time. And then there's other things that drop off, like cleaning the house sometimes.
That's what the Lunar New Year tradition is
Yeah,
for.
right. Exactly.
All right. We're just going to take a couple more questions. Lafayette Elementary School asks, what is your Lunar New Year zodiac sign?
Ooh, I am a rooster.
Okay. What is that? For those of us who don't know, what does that have a special meaning or?
Well, on the placemats, if you've ever been to a dining person that has a placemat, on the placemats it says we're stubborn, which I think is a little bit true. But I think that we're very determined, that kind of thing. I'd have to actually look that up to be more clear, because I don't always love the placemat definition, so I kind of block it out of my brain.
Love it. I'm just scrolling through our questions. Let's see. Um, I have a couple people asking a question, and I know it's hard to have a favorite, but a few people like Olivia from Friends Community School are wondering if you have one of your books is your favorite, and if so, why?
I don't have a favorite, because I think it's related to the answer I said before, which is that every one of my books has a part of me in it. So there's something personal about every single story. So it's probably whatever is the top of mind is the one that's coming out most recently, or the one that I'm working on the most. But I love all of them, and I'm grateful that all of the ones that are being published have the opportunity to be out in the world.
It's a very fair answer. It's hard to have. You're like your children, right? You don't want to have a favorite. You love all of them.
Right.
Um, okay, just maybe one or two more questions. Peyton, who's a second grader at Lafayette, would like to know if COVID made writing the book more difficult.
Oh, that's a great, interesting question. These books were written before COVID, because remember, the publishing process takes a really long time. So the books that I shared about today were written like 2017, early 2019. Actually, maybe Eyes That Speak the Stars was written 2020, so that was during COVID. But I think that in some ways, COVID made it really hard, because I'm an administrator at a school during a pandemic, and so that's been really, really hard and stressful. I'm also a single mom, so that's a lot. I was at home a lot, with my kids, which I love, but I just bandwidth wise did not have the creative inspiration to write. So I think I go through phases, like as soon as I'm on winter break, I like shut all the doors and I'm a hermit, and like all the things that are like pent up that I didn't get to during the year, I write a lot of times on my vacations. So on some ways, I'm still writing, but it's changed like when and how I write and when I feel able to write.
Hmm. Hmm. All right. I wish we could answer every single question. I want to close with a question from Avi, who asks, how did you overcome people saying negative things to you?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. You know what? I truthfully, it is a process. I think it's a lot of having a lot of people in my life, like the characters in the book, who are empowering and affirming to me, whether that's family or chosen family. And I think for me on this journey, I think it's a lifetime journey of unlearning some of these things. Is truly, it's like learning more about my culture, visiting and living in Taiwan, realizing like it's like picking up a magazine. One time I was in like a 7-Eleven and it was a magazine when I was in Taiwan full of Asian women. I'd never seen, I was like 30 and I'd never seen anything like that before, just a magazine full of beautiful Asian women, and realizing, oh wow, like Asian women are really beautiful. Like I can be beautiful. So I think it's like learning more about my own history and culture and family, and finding like the power and the beauty and all these things I never learned in school has been really empowering to me. And truth, and also like this writing process of like the more I write, the more I think empowered I feel. So I think it's all of those things, and really finding a center in myself to know like all of those external things are not true.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Joanna, and thank you all for your questions. They were great questions.
Yes.
Really, really thoughtful, inquisitive questions. So thank you for being with us today. You can still click on the link in the chat box to purchase your copy of Eyes That Speak to the Stars. So when that comes out on February 15th, you'll have your own copy already ready for you. And I know as an independent bookstore, we really appreciate all of your support. You can learn about other upcoming events in the Children and Teens Department on our website, which is politics-prose.com. You just want to click on the Children and Teens tab, and you can click on events for a calendar of all of our upcoming events. And as I said earlier, you can also stream our past events and this one as well on our YouTube channel. So if you really enjoyed the event today and you want to show it to your friend or your brother, sister, mom, dad, just go to our YouTube channel and they can watch this too. All right. Again, thank you, Joanna, for being with us today. Congratulations on your book. And we will hopefully see you again, perhaps when one of those future projects that you're working on comes out. So thank you again so much. And thanks everyone for joining in. Have a great day.
Thank you all.